Do you know we're almost the same age? I'm about to be 41 as well. But unfortunately, I'm not ready for president.
Who knows? Nobody knows when you're ready. Yes. Then we have.
These are surreal times in Ukraine.
Benny Hill.
Benny
For
Hill?
him, yes, it's more understandable than Monty Python. For me, Monty Python is better. I'm sorry. Can I speak about
Meet Vladimir Zelensky. He's a comedian and the front-runner in the presidential election.
I don't know if it's interesting for you, but
Let's have a look.
We've dropped into his office in Kiev as he works on new material with his team.
Или теперь весь юмор будет про меня? Да?
Про вас.
Okay, let's go.
Mr. Zelensky has turned Ukrainian politics on its head.
Not very good result.
No? The jokes weren't funny today?
But it's been done by shamelessly blurring the line between fiction and fact. The mood was very different 5 years ago as demonstrations in central Kiev turned violent. More than 100 people died and the country's pro-Russian leader was forced to flee. In Ukraine, they call it the Revolution of Dignity. Is this its next act? For the last 3 years, Mr. Zelensky has been starring in a TV show called Servant of the People. He plays an ordinary guy who unexpectedly wins Ukraine's election.
Василий Петрович Голобородько? Да. Доброе утро, господин президент.
Mr. Zelensky's campaign pitch is basically vote for me and get the fictional president, Goloborodka. For those who still don't get it, he's called his political party Servant of the People, just like his TV show.
Конечно же, это ответ всему политическому истеблишменту. Люди хотят что-то новое.
But there is one rather important difference between the real candidate and the fictional president. On TV, much is made of the president defying the powerful oligarchs that dominate Ukrainian politics.
Вместо того, чтобы служить народу, вы прислуживаете олигархам. И зараз за декілька хвилин.
In reality, all Vladimir Zelensky's shows are broadcast on a channel owned by the country's most controversial billionaire, Igor Kolomoisky. These days, you have to leave Ukraine to find him.
Jonah Fisher from the BBC. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so
We've come to Israel for a rare interview.
So you're a billionaire, but you drive yourself?
And it's a Skoda. Mr. Kolomoisky is not quite on the run, but back in Ukraine he's been accused of theft on an extraordinary scale. Financial investigators allege that Mr. Kolomoisky and his business partners were responsible for a $5.5 billion black hole in the account of the bank that they owned. It's called Privatbank. Fake news, he tells me.
В современном мире деньги же никуда не могут деться. То есть они из одних счетов должны попасть на другие счета. А если они покажут, куда и сколько мы забрали, то мы готовы, конечно же, все вернуть.
Дорогі співвітчизники.
With the bank on the brink of collapse, Ukraine's president and rival oligarch Petro Poroshenko announced that it was being taken from Mr. Kolomoisky and nationalized.
So is this election then your chance to get revenge for what happened with Privatbank?
Нет, это, то есть, это вообще не связанные вещи. То есть у нас нет вопроса мести.
And that leads us back to the comedian.
Для меня Зеленский это не персоналия, это некий символ. Символ смены поколений. Украина нуждается не в одном Зеленском, а в миллионах Зеленских.
I'm sure you've heard that people say that you are just a puppet of Igor Kolomoisky, that you've been put forward as his candidate.
Во-первых, это неправда. Я никакая не игрушка в руках Коломойского.
Take this opportunity to reassure people that if you were president, if you won this election, that you would continue efforts to get the billions of dollars that he allegedly stole back to Ukraine, and that you would continue with all the investigations that are still ongoing into Igor Kolomoisky.
Все мы перед законом равны, будь то человек, будь то олигарх, будь то крупнейший бизнесмен. Если кто-то что-то украл, и это доказано правоохранительными органами, этот человек обязан вернуться, никто ничего закрывать не будет.
The problem is that Ukraine's justice system is rotten to its core, and judges easily bought. Loving the comedian hasn't stopped Mr. Kolomoisky flirting with some of the more conventional presidential candidates. Yulia Tymoshenko, Ukraine's former prime minister, is also getting serious airtime on the oligarch's influential television channel.
The ideal scenario for Kolomoisky would be to have both Vladimir Zelensky, a comedian, and Yulia Tymoshenko, whom he likes, to be in the second tour of the
second round.
To be in the second round of the presidential elections. It means that voters will choose who the president will be. Kolomoisky number 1 or Kolomoisky number 2?
And what of Mr. Kolomoisky's arch enemy, the man who took his bank and holds the top job? Swept to power after the revolution 5 years ago, Petro Poroshenko turned Ukraine decisively away from Russia towards Europe. But he's made slow progress tackling corruption.
After the previous revolution, everyone were ready to wait for better life. Everyone understands that system should be changed, and there is no other way. He did not change the system. That is the problem. He missed the historical window of opportunity.
While the oligarchs feud, the war in the east against Russian-backed rebels rumbles on, almost forgotten. The conflict has cost Ukraine territory and more than 10,000 lives. And there's no end in sight. At the end of March, Ukraine will choose its next direction. The choice between 2 warring oligarchs and 3 leading presidential candidates. There may well be a change in style, but none of them look like being the reformer that this country so badly needs.